No thoughts. Just 2020s. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Vince has asked me to play with Turbo Depths. Now, this is an offshoot of a list that Crucible of Words played on their channel. I don't know when exactly, but Vince saw that league and was like, I wanna see this again. I want the run back. And I have taken some of Vince's suggestions for what to do with the sideboard, but I have left the main deck intact, and I want to talk about that. So Vince sent me some thoughts and said, hey, should this deck have Yavimaya in the place where Urborg is? Should we take out one Urborg to play a Yavimaya for that variety? And that was something that I wanted to talk about. Yavimaya is Urborg, but for green. And I think if specifically your build wants to be playing Lumbering Mega Sloth as another thing to do with your Dark Depths, then Yavimaya makes a ton of sense and is quite good. And you can maybe play like 6 of the effects total, maybe 3 Urborgs, 3 Yavimayas. The split will depend a little bit depending on what exactly you're doing with your deck, but at that point they become good. But this deck actually has very little green mana. Let's ignore Once Upon a Time, which you are trying to cast for free. Let's ignore Elvish Spirit Guide, which is just mana production. There are only 2 cards in this deck that require green mana. Your copies of Crop Rotation and your Croppies... Croppies? Yes, your Croppies of Sylvan Scrying. It's been a day, folks. It's been a day. So I don't think you are ever going to need green in this deck unless things get weird and you're at the point where you're hard casting Force of Vigors in post sideboard games. So I did not think that that was a good addition, and indeed maxing out an Urborg is really important to increase the density of turn 2 2020s that you can do. Now, as far as the sideboard goes, there is a very tough choice to be made in this sideboard. Do you want to play Fairy Macabre, which you can find off the Once Upon a Times that are already in your deck, or do you want to play Leyline of the Void because oops all spells? I am going to say that Once Upon a Time is potentially a deal breaker and might be enough to push you towards Fairy Macabre, but I'm not actually 100% sure. As far as the sideboard goes, we have diverse answers to various problems that we can see. We have answers to things like Blood Moon in particular. I've added Dismember into the deck so that we have outs to Magus of the Moon style cards like that and Harbinger of the Seas. And otherwise, we just have a little bit of wiggle room to adjust the defenses in this deck to better suit situations. One other thing that Vince suggested is maybe we can get away with running fewer copies of Pithing Needle. I don't really think that's true. One of the best things that you can do in this deck in the blind when you don't know what deck you're playing against is just play a land drop, put Pithing Needle on Wasteland, and now the easiest way of interacting with your combo that is going to produce a 2020 is now gone. And many blue decks, like your Delver style decks, now might be down to 2 or 3 answers to a 2020 in the remainder of the deck. So, with that being said, let's jump into it. Folks, if you need some cards either for this deck or maybe for upcoming stuff that you are going to be seeing from the absolutely awesome Tarkir Dragonstorm, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. They tend to have about 95% of standard legal cards in stock at any time, and they've also got a bunch of sweet old cards as well. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order, and you always get free shipping. Alright, let's go make some 2020s. Alright, what are we cooking with here? So I have... Opponent says, oh hello, wonder what oddity you're playing today. I would never... Okay, so if I cast Once Upon a Time and hit a Vampire Hexmage, I have a turn 2. Otherwise, I have a turn 3 because Dark Depths can tap for mana with Urborg in play. So I think I like this a lot. We have some decent defensive options. I think opponent's having a good day. Mirror, 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 mirror. No, it is Cloud Post instead. All right, let's do this. So I did not hit what I am looking for. I think I will just take an Elvish Spirit Guide here. Multiple Elvish Spirit Guides is a little weird, but I might want to Pithing Needle this turn. Ooh, shit, we have to take a Disruptor Flute. Oh, fuck, there's also fucking Kozilek's Command, this piece of shit. All right, so my opponent can... Damn it. Two things here I need to answer. I'm going to take the Kozilek's Command. Yeah, fuck, and there's Maze of Ith. What the fuck is this? Exploding Cat, what have you done to me? Wow, this is tricky. I think I'm taking the Kozilek's Command. We've got other problems, though. So the One Ring is coming, Maze of Ith is coming, Disruptor Flute is coming. Shit, okay. Do I need to Pithing Needle immediately? I'm gonna go with no. So if I Pithing Needle immediately, I can't Once Upon a Time Spirit Guide next turn, which is something that I might want to do. All right. My Urborg makes Maze of Ith tap for mana. So my opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4 mana next turn. They can cast the One Ring next turn. I think I am going to double Spirit Guide Once Upon a Time here. And this has to do with some fucking priority pass reasons. So there's this Disruptor Flute thing, right? So I have a window where I can cast a Vampire Hexmage, put it in play, but I can't stop my opponent from casting Disruptor Flute on Vampire Hexmage in response. So this is going to be bait instead. So I am going to cast this. My opponent will Disruptor Flute in response. Name the Vampire Hexmage. Now, next turn I can Thespian stage Dark Depths. And I save Pithing Needle to beat Maze of Ith instead of putting it on the One Ring. Awkward. Oh, they are filtering into green for crop rotation. Urza's Tower. Oh, my opponent didn't realize that their Maze of Ith was going to tap for mana off of Urborg. That's very easy to miss, to be fair. So I'll hold this until they play that. Yeah, opponent said, oops, forgot to play my land. All right, no worries. In case some wasteland type stuff gets involved, I'm going to go ahead and do this now. Keep the one with no ice counters. Attack out of spite. It will do no damage. Then my opponent can get their cards. Now, I am not out of the woods yet, because my opponent, even if I try to actively play around Maze of Ith, could still just draw into a Kozilek's Command off of the One Ring and make my life hell. Oh god. So much mana. Alright, no Maze of Ith. Don't do it. My Marit Lage has so much to live for. Grim Monolith. Damn it. This seems like a nightmare matchup. There's Maze of Ith, there's presumably Sowing Mycospawn in there, there's main deck Disruptor Flutes. One Ring Fog is really bad in addition to the One Ring card draw. Yeah, life's awful. That's interesting. Note here, before someone says this in the comments, Disruptor Flute has shut off Vampire Hexmage from taking counters off of the One Ring, just before someone says that. Now, do I need to just shut off the One Ring and give up on answering this and resort to answering it with Ghost Quarter? Probably. I could Ghost Quarter Planar Nexus to stop the tower synergies, but I think if I do that, I'm not leaving myself a realistic path to victory. It's tough for me to beat Maze of Ith, and I don't think I can count on my opponent just dying to their own One Ring. Like, even if I get rid of Planar Nexus, say it's replaced by a basic forest, my opponent still has 6 mana for this turn. There's Once Upon a Time, filtering for green. Fuck. That asshole. Get out of my format, Sowing Mycospawn. Alright, so my Urborg is gone. Unless I want to convert Urborg into a basic land. Which I don't think I do because I know about this. Alright, so my opponent is not dying to their own One Ring counters anymore. They get a turn of Fog, but I can't attack into that 3/3 anyway. Crop rotation's a thing. I don't really want to crop rotation away the Ghost Quarter, though. Shit. Shit. No. No. This now can happen every turn for the rest of the game. I think I am okay to tap out here. Like, I can keep trying to wiggle, but Eye of Ugin with triple Urza's Tower, I think is very damning. Inquisition misses the one ring. That's got to go. Pithing Needle is very good. It hits the one ring. There's some tension for what I actually select with the Pithing Needle. I'm going to bring in an extra Boseiju. I'll take out a Bojuka Bog. I don't need that tutor target here. Protection from the color of your choice. Colorless removal, get wrecked. Maybe I leave in the black mana source instead of that, actually. All right, let's get Hexproof. Might need Duress. I can't sideboard too much here. I could get rid of Thoughtseize to play other protection effects, but Thoughtseize in itself is a protection effect that also can stop my opponent's proactive plans. I'm not really sure if that makes sense. I might get rid of Once Upon a Time to play more interaction, though. I think my opponent has enough interaction that I just need to protect myself when I go off. Let's get one more Not of This World. Then do I want something like Abrupt Decay or Force of Vigor or the Pithing Needle style effects that my opponent can play? Kind of. Got a couple of Boseijus that cover that stuff. I'm going to play one selection spell when I'm on the play. And I might play one reactive spell when I'm on the draw. Dark Depths. No mana to do Dark Depths things. So get black mana, Thoughtseize you. Play second land that does not produce mana. I would have to Spirit Guide or a Thespian or Sylvan Scrying for Thespian stage, and then not even produce a 2020 the following turn. That's not great. I could keep this and hope to hit something that rounds out the hand, or I could just go to 5. I think I'm going to go to 5. This matchup feels very bad. I want to come out the gate swinging here, which this does not do. Now we might just lose to mulligans. I get 4 of these. You. And then there's a good chance that I can just throw a 2020 into play on turn 2. I'll need another mana source. This is not going to have the protection that I want. Actually, what if I play the Hexmage on 1? What if I play the Hexmage on 1, not on 2, and then I crop rotation 2020? That's fine. That's the way to play this. Tower pass. Okay. Send it. Opponent's at 18. I think I'm going to go for the surprise factor here. I think I'm going to try to make it look like I've got nothing. This line is punished by my opponent just playing out a Wasteland and passing the turn. Fuck. Now they can One Ring. This Turn of Fog is so strong. It is Disruptor Flute. I'm going to respond to that. Float colorless. Crop rotation. Sacrificing Thespian stage. Fuck! Yeah. Yeah. What a punish. Am I still getting Dark Depths? Yes, it just feels bad. Now my opponent names Thespian stage with this one, and then they have their bases covered. So I was trying to get my opponent to commit mana to something on their turn so that I could surprise them and they would not have the mana to beat me with something like a Kozilek's command. And instead I got by double Disruptor Flute, which I would have played around if I had done it on my own turn. I don't regret my line. I think I've got to try to high roll to win. But it sure does feel bad. You know, selling Micah spawn me? Alright, we're out. We're out. Rough matchup is rough. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Okay, how fast do I 2020 here? Can do some sort of, the hand's a keep. I can do some sort of crop rotation for Boseiju thing. I think I am still a little limited. Because I need stage and depths in play. I could just hit another mana source, like another Lotus Petal or Spirit Guide next turn, and just go off. There's also a question of whether or not I play out Lotus Petal. If I play out Lotus Petal, it breaks the ability to draw Once Upon a Time and cast it for free. I think I'm not going to play to my absolute highest upside, and I'm just going to put a green land into play and pass the turn. And we're just going to stare at each other for a minute, which is fine by me. Now I think I will play out Thespian Stage, but not show Lotus Petal. And pass. And my opponent will probably grab a Surveil land. It is a hoo-hoo. We have crop rotation for Bojuka Bog if shit goes sideways here. Just a land drop and passing the turn. Sure. Oh, I actually love drawing that bonus Lotus Petal. That's quite good for me. Because that means that I can Dark Depths, Thespian Stage, using using all of this, and then still have Lotus Petal for crop rotation Bojuka Bog in response to my opponent trying to put in something like an Archon of Cruelty. It is a secondary Surveil land at end of turn. On it not keeping Thoughtseize, yeah. The danger's right here. The danger's on board. I expect that there's a good chance that there is a fight on my end step. Ooh. So Unmask can take my crop rotation, and casting crop rotation doesn't make sense right now. Oh shit, that was Unmask targeting themselves. What else is over there? Oh, just Animate Dead style stuff? Yeah, bad news, friend. Thespian Sage, target Dark Depths. Keep the one with no ice counters. Make green. Crop rotation. Sacrifice Boseiju. Bojuka Bog. Target you. Hey, there we go. That was a very strong opener on my end. This is what this deck is capable of. Alright, so against my opponent's instant speed Reanimator deck, I want to have Fairy Macabres, and I should consider some number of Abrupt Decays and Dismembers, as weird as that sounds, because my opponent is likely to also have Chain of Smog combo in their deck, either main deck or sideboard. I am probably going to cut all of my Pithing Needles. I would like extra duress effects. I think I am okay playing Boseiju. If my opponent kills my 20/20, they're probably doing it with an Edict rather than with targeted removal. I think I'm just going to make that little swap. Now, in black-green, is there any sort of weirdo removal spell, or are we looking at like Fatal Pushes and Edicts and stuff? Probably Edicts are the thing that I need to be concerned with, like Edicts and Discard. So Not of This World can potentially go, and I can play a couple of Dismembers or Abrupt Decays. Dismember is better against Chain of Smog combo, and it's easier on the resources. Abrupt Decay can randomly catch some things that my opponent could play in a sideboard, like a Disruptor Flute. I think I am going to err on the side of Dismember here. This is fine. So this has opening hand access to Fairy Macabre. This has some discard. It potentially can crop rotation for Bojuka Bog as well, or crop rotation for a combo piece, or Once Upon a Time for a combo piece. This is fine. Notably in this matchup, there's a big difference between Leyline of the Void, which already would be in play, and then my opponent couldn't really interact with it, and a Fairy Macabre that can be taken by a Thoughtseize. I'm going to cast this in response. I do need some mana. I do need some Dark Depths pieces here. Dark Depths with the Urborg that's already in my hand is my second mana. I think I'm just going to take the Dark Depths. This does mean that my crop rotation is not super potent in the short term. Ooh, my opponent took my Thoughtseize. Fascinating. Ooh, that's all quite nice. We're going to put this crop rotation in play. I would like to not have to use crop rotation. That is one land. I'm going to go ahead and just play out Dark Depths and pass the turn. And then we'll talk later on. Oh, there's Spoils of the Vault. Let's see what my opponent names. That is Chain of Smog that they have gone for. That's fine. So we are chilling. So do I want to go for the win? I can float 2 mana, crop rotation with Lotus Petal, getting rid of Urborg, pick up Thespian Stage, and go for the win immediately, but get got by something like Dark Ritual Opposition Agent or Dark Ritual into an Edict. My opponent is missing land drops. I should probably just go for it. Oh, it's just gonna work. So Thespian stage, target Dark Depths, keep the one with no ice counters. Oh shit, we just won. Turns out presenting a win condition on turn 3, pretty okay thing to do. Our opponent stumbled and we took advantage of that. I wonder if they could have Spoils of the Vaulted or something else. Like, can you spoils for a Dark Ritual to stay alive there in some capacity by having it out to Marit Lage? Or did my opponent just think they had another turn? Very hard to say. They had 7 cards in hand. This is a bit of an interesting hand. I could somewhat reasonably keep this and assume that 2 Inquisition of Kozilek's punches a hole that buys me a few turns. I think in game 1, I would rather just mulligan to a more stable 6 than this. I get to use Once Upon a Time to find a piece. I get to use Crop Rotation to find the other piece. This is fine. I don't get to keep the Pithing Needle with this hand, I don't think. So before we ruin it, let's do this. We need to do that prior to Thoughtseize if I want to do it for free. Oh, sure. That's fine. I'm fine. Opponent says hello. Incredibly generic opening hand here. I think, yeah, resolving this crop rotation is going to be big game later on. I don't really want to leave my opponent with double Brainstorm, but I don't want them to Brainstorm and hide this Force of Will next turn and then just redraw it. So I'm going to take the Force of Will. I wonder what my opponent is playing, that they are willing to keep a hand that looks like this. With the basic planes there, this is probably some slower Esper control deck. The jig is up that I'm playing Dark Depths, right? Like, I think the jig is up. Do I have a Surveil land in here? No. This is actual factual green mana. I guess I can technically hold up crop rotation. All Thoughtseize you'll Brainstorm. Yep, Brainstorm after fetching. Now, my goal with casting this Thoughtseize is not really to take a card from my opponent's hand. It's to make Brainstorm less efficient, because my opponent has a fistful of lands. I don't want them to shuffle away 2 of these lands. So my opponent can redraw 1 good card, and then fetch, shuffle away something else. I don't want them to Brainstorm away more of these lands, so I'm going to take that. Now, there is presumably some good card in their hand now, and it could be something like Swords to Plowshares. And my opponent has played out a white fetch land rather than a blue fetch land, so there's a good chance that I might not be in good shape. I'm going to play these out, and I can go for it at my opponent's end step. Oh, they didn't want to shuffle yet. All right, well, now the crop rotation is protection. Everything's fine until my opponent plays something like a Murktide Regent that is proactive. Then things start getting scary. I'm just going to dismiss all this stuff. I could technically tick down an ice counter here, but I don't think that is relevant. Nice. So I Thespian stage with 2 of my mana, let's say those 2. Targeting Dark Depths. My opponent responds by wastelanding Dark Depths. I fetch. I use this mana to get a new Thespian stage, and I still have enough mana to do my thing. Yeah, I'm still good. What is this? Goyf? Or Jace? Oh, hardcast Kaito. That is fine. You may have your emblem. Thespian stage, target Dark Depths, no white mana available. So we see this fired off in response. I'll fetch for green. I will crop rotation, sacrificing the Dark Depths. Oh, fuck, I know, I fucked up. Oh, well, it didn't matter. My opponent didn't catch that, but that was the wrong land to target. So I keep the Dark Depths, I get rid of the Thespian stage, I do that and copy. Luckily, my opponent just Force of Willed very quickly there. But that was absolutely not what I meant to do. Whatever, we'll just luck sack into a new one. Shit. Alright, am I hard casting this? Sure. So there's land drop. Kaito's coming in. And I can decide whether or not I want to attempt to pressure Kaito or if I want to stop my opponent from drawing cards this turn. I think I want to stop them from drawing cards. I think every turn here is horrifying. And Kaito's just going to get bigger and bigger. Okay, there is a crop rotation. Do this in my opponent's upkeep? Hardcast Force of Will is a thing. Yeah, let's do this in my opponent's upkeep. It lets them know it's coming. Now? Now Hardcast Force of Will isn't on. Hardcast Force of Negation is. I'm not sure if I care. Let's crop rotation. Sacrifice the Verdant. Get the Dark Depths. Thespian Stage. Target Dark Depths. Keep the one with no ice counters to make my 2020. And I'm at 14. Opponent knows that they're dead to this. Yeah. Do we concede now? How much is Kaito fucking smacking me for? 5? Potentially 6 if my opponent just pluses again. Yeah. So this is 8 damage. Yeah, I die next turn. I have no outs to that. Shit. Okay. So obviously I messed up and just brain farted and clicked on the wrong card. But aside from that, there was one other point of agency in the match that I could talk about. So on like turn 2 or 3, I cast a Thoughtseize, and I knew that the coast was clear. I could have attempted to resolve crop rotation at that spot, even if I could not combo immediately. Doing so is punished heavily by a Wasteland, though, which my opponent did have. So Not of This World and Legolas's Quick Reflexes seem really nice for exile-based removal and Brazen Borrower bounce type stuff. I'm into this stuff. Pithing Needle for Wasteland is a thing. Pithing Needle can also potentially hit Kaito. My opponent probably does not have that many Wastelands. I could just kind of ignore Wasteland as a thing and get better at attacking my opponent's hand and dealing with things once they are on the stack. But if I do this, the 2 or 3 copies of Wasteland that my opponent are probably running are pretty powerful against me. And this is where I, as someone who only plays, a deck for 5 matches, don't have the innate heuristics of like, okay, in this matchup, I should be doing X, Y, and Z. I'm not 100% sure how strongly I need to be worried and hedging around my opponent's Wastelands specifically versus their other tools. I don't have either side of the combo in hand. I can get half of it with crop rotation. I don't think I'm going to keep a 7 that looks like this. When we get to 6 or 5, we'll talk. So this is a 6-card hand that gets rid of Urborg and attacks my opponent's hand twice. That's fine. So Inquisition first or Thoughtseize first? I guess I'm always casting this one first. There's a Hexmage. Thoughtseize takes Force of Will, Inquisition doesn't. I still have time to take Force of Will later. Let's lead on Inquisition. Oh, wow. Did I wiggle through all of that shit? All of it? Okay. Opponent does not have black mana. I don't need to take Shoulder's Edict. Swords to Plowshares is very good. Brainstorm is insane here. Yet, I'm going to take Brainstorm. I know everything that's over there. I can try my damnedest to play around it. I can hope that Shoulder's Edict gets stuck in hand. Alright. Fuck my Thoughtseizes. I also think I played the wrong land there. I think I play Thespian Stage so that if I top deck Dark Depths, I can take Swords this turn and get through. So I'll take Swords with this first one. I'll cast the second one. But these Thoughtseizes matter a lot less if my opponent has an ongoing source of card advantage. I'll now take the Shoulder's Edict. That way, if my opponent goes and Force of Wills something... Sorry, that's not what I was saying. If my opponent draws the black land, then this is not a problem for me. And with clue tokens happening every turn, there's a good chance that they will. That's my Dark Depths, which I need. I am going to try to get my opponent to Force of Will Vampire Hexmage. And this is a card that you likely do want to Force of Will, because if Dark Depths is the follow-up, Force of Will and Force of Negation don't interact with it. Okay, so my bait was successful there. So next turn, I can Sylvan Scrying to find my Dark Depths. I can't activate immediately unless I get like a Lotus Petal or a Spirit Guide, because it's 2 mana for Sylvan Scrying. Dark Depths will tap for 1. A Lotus Petal or a Spirit Guide gets me to where I want to be. Amio was rough, though. Opponent is surveilling before they crack the clue. Oh, that's a fancy looking swamp. All right. So I want to cast Sylvan Scrying, but again, I can't go off this turn, so that probably just means I make the Bayou as a land drop prior to playing anything. All right, I have Thespian Stage, so I pick up Dark Depths. The next turn I do my thing. Opponent can crack their clue. Let's dismiss this. And we'll see where this goes. Opponent now has 4 mana. So like all the Swords to Plowshares, Shouldered Edicts type stuff can just come off of clues. Sylvan Scrying I don't think does anything cool for me. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the turn here. So I potentially have Wasteland to worry about, which wants me to activate this now. But I also have sorcery speed removal, such as Teferi, to be thinking about. I think I'm gonna do it in their upkeep. I have made my 20/20. That does not mean that this is safe, though. Like, my opponent has 4 cards in hand, plus a 5th Tamiyo card. Yeah. There's one of the sorcery speed punishes, like Teferi. So, alright, well, I was going to say now we hold this until we draw part of the combo. So there's a Dark Depths. Do I want to just cast the other one immediately? Or do I want to try to hold for any reason? I think I'm casting the other one immediately. Forest is Bayou. Cast Sylvan Scrying. So opponent appears to have Force of Will. They're going to crack their clue first to see if they have something different they want to pitch. Sure. Opponent has so much mana. So Ponder plus crack Tamiyo clue can flip Tamiyo. Once Tamiyo is flipped and my opponent starts returning swords and Shouldered Edicts, I think it's over. I just don't think I come back from that much card advantage. I think I am going to go ahead and tap out here. I think the writing is on the wall because my opponent activates that. And then even if I top deck, say, a Thespian Stage to make my 20/20, my opponent just has that covered already. Okay, so Bayou, Lotus Petal, cast Vampire Hexmage, Elvish Spirit Guide, Crop Rotation, sacrifice Bayou, get Dark Depths, produce 20/20 on turn 1. Don't be a blue deck. Technically, they might not be a blue deck. I'll probably just slow my roll here. I think I'm just going to go Bayou Pass and not cast Once Upon a Time immediately. That is Troll Cycling. We are probably playing against Reanimator, which is in theory fine, I guess. Ponder is fine. Use your damn Wasteland, please. All right, that is Upkeep Wasteland, which I will respond to. I will cast a Once Upon a Time in response. I will, I think, put a Dark Depths to hand anyway, just in case my Crop Rotation doesn't resolve. So green mana, cast Crop Rotation targeting Bayou. Now it's more interesting. I could get Bojuka Bog and take that Troll out of graveyard. Troll does not matter if I actually resolve Vampire Hexmage and do the Dark Depths thing, though. Urborg is an okay pickup here. I can go Urborg, Lotus Petal, Dark Depths. I'm easily playing around Days anyway with double Spirit Guide in hand. I could also just get Thespian Stage and slow down my game a bit. I think I'll get Urborg. Oh, all right. We've got Spirit Guides, and now it is a game of, does my opponent actually have a Force of Will beyond this? They do. Opponent also had Days and did not fight over Crop Rotation. I wonder if they have a bunch of black cards in hand. Seems like yes. Fun game, Magic the Gathering. Dead. Anyway, looking forward to bans. We'll beat that dead horse. Fairy Macabre is good. Duress is fine. I could think about some Legolas Quick Reflexes style cards, or some things like Brazen Borrower. So my opponent's just got Wasteland, so I can't really board out Pithing Needle here, even though it's not great versus the Reanimator strategy. I might need to not play Not of This World to make my slots work, assuming that I want to run all of this. Then I might just like trim some Once Upon a Times. Yeah, this is totally fine. So I just have a turn 3 as of right now. I mean, I'm going to take the Brazen Borrower, but my opponent can just kind of sit on Wasteland here. They did not just sit on Wasteland. Animate dead to graveyard. Well, I know that they have Days. I can't play Vampire Hexmage into Days successfully here. So we are going to keep this and hope that my opponent wastelands a Dark Depths. I don't have green mana showing. So they might not fire things off immediately. This is all slightly awkward here because of the known days. So I'm going to cast a Vampire Hexmage. My opponent will wasteland Dark Depths in response. Yep, I don't have green for crop rotation, so that is occurring. And then next turn, I can play a new Dark Depths and then do the Vampire Hexmage thing. This brainstorm will mean that I don't know the exact contents of my opponent's hand anymore. There's some troll cycling. We have a fairy to clean this stuff up if need be. There's swamp. Opponent goes for reanimate on troll. I will take out troll and I guess brazen borrower when that happens. So then we'll give a little love tap for 2. Opponent's at 18. I could get rid of Thespian Stage instead of Vampire Hexmage, but Sheoldred's Edict clears either creature already. I think I'm going to go with the Hexmage here and leave my bonus land in play. Alright, 2020, what are you going to do about it? Alright, concession. When I am on the draw, having the extra copies of Once Upon a Time is nice to help find Fairy Macabre, so that my opponent just doesn't do the thing and just quickly kill me. I could go down a little discard. I could go down some Pithing Needles. I could cut Sajiri. It hits Brazen Borrower. And again, there's probably 2 or 3 Brazen Borrowers in this deck. On the draw, let's get rid of Duress. Let's keep a couple Once Upon a Times. And then I'm going to go down a Pithing Needle. No, I'm actually going to go down a Crop Rotation. Did that change go through? No, it did not. This is a mediocre hand. I have 2 sides of the... I have 2 of the same side of the combo. I have a piece of interaction. I'm not stopping my opponent from doing their thing. This is pretty mid. This hand is good. This one I'll keep. Back Basic Forest. You want to cast this in a way where it is not dazable. Drawing the Bog would be awkward. Spirit Guide doesn't get me anywhere. Second Thespian Stage could get me somewhere if it gets wastelanded. I'm going to take Stage. And then it's just Swamp and pass. Crop Rotation. With Bog still in deck, that's a live card. So the awkward thing is that if I use my green mana to be able to Crop Rotation in case my opponent Thoughtseizes and then reanimates after casting Entomb, then I don't actually present my kill as quickly as I can. Boy, that's really awkward. I'm going to present my own kill as quickly as I can. I think if my opponent has a Thoughtseize effect, there's a very good chance that that gets fired off on turn 1. It's not 100%. There's a very good chance. If the Entomb happens this turn, then that means that my Fairy Macabre always works. There is a Reanimate. I will say no to that. Bayou is absolutely not what I am looking for here. There's some crop rotation awkwardness going on right now in terms of playing out my combo pieces to go as quickly as possible versus hedging against an opposing wasteland. Where'd I end up on Sajiri? Out? No, Sajiri is still in. I may end up slowing my roll to be able to crop rotation for Sajiri. I guess if I'm thinking about slowing my roll, I should just play a Bayou this turn so I have crop rotation up to counter black land plus Entomb plus reanimate or animate dead. I think that was a mistake on my end. Not one that's punished here, but a mistake. Fascinating. Oh wow, this game is tough. So I can cast Vampire Hexmage, which is interacted with via Force of Will. Or I can just do my land stuff and pass and be threatening the 2020, so my opponent can't really tap out for something. I can try to play a longer game by playing crop rotation out, or by having access to crop rotation. I think that I'm going to do that. I've just got vibes that if I shove, this is not going to work. So now I am less bad against random Entomb reanimate nonsense. And then next turn, I can try to set up something with some degree of real protection. My opponent has junked a Delta. I guess I still have to worry about some mid-range bullshit like Orcish Bowmasters sniping Hexmage, which may be a reason to not take this line. Alright, so my opponent kept their card, whatever it was. More other Hexmage. Cool. Play Dark Depths. The metaphorical ball is now in my court. I don't care about a Bowmaster anymore. Send in. 17. And I think I just passed the turn. Roll cycling is fine. I think I attempt to make my 20/20 on my opponent's upkeep. The Wasteland doesn't mess with me. Yes. Alright, so let's get in there. Try to remove these counters from the Dark Depths. That's going to happen. I'll float a mana here just in case things get weird. I've got a 20/20. I have Crop Rotation to defend it from Brazen Borrower. And I have Crop Rotation for Bojuka Bog if my opponent goes for Archon of Cruelty. That is a Troll Cycle to shuffle. Underground Sea. And passing the turn. Alright. Well, got me Brazen Borrower. That is Brazen Borrower. So, float a mana. Crop Rotation. Sacking Bayou. Need Force of Will. Or Force of Negation, sure. Pitching Harbinger of the Seas, that's rough. Alright, let's draw Dark Depths. Another Urborg is not really what I want to see here. I'm in not great shape. I have no manipulation here. My opponent has one guaranteed threat, one potentially lingering threat, and at any given time we are an Entomb plus a Reanimate away from death. Thoughtseize misses. Yeah, there's an Animate dead. Now, I don't get to attack with Vampire Hexmage anymore. Oh, my opponent has Wasteland as well. Alright. Not great. We'll pick up Basic Forest, which is also Bayou. We will take out that Animate dead. My opponent can Surveil. They junk a land. I get in for 2. 13. I think I am at an overwhelming disadvantage. We are kind of at the, cast sad spirit guides stage of the game where we hope to maybe limp over the finish line if my opponent just bricks off on relevant cards. They've clearly got something to think about, so there is a castable card over there. I can Bojuka Bog to clear the trolls. That's at least something, I guess. And then I can potentially Thespian stage my opponent's Wasteland to be better suited to having a combo turn of my own. This will put my opponent at 11, and then we'll go ahead and bog my opponent. I do think we bog to clear out the trolls, even though something worse could be coming. I think we just have to take reasonable game actions that have a chance at prolonging my lifespan. Alright, seems like we have dodged something scary happening on my opponent's side this turn. Let's go ahead and copy their Wasteland. Success. Found it. Opponent is at 9. So I actually want to not Wasteland until Dark Depths is in play, right? I want to Wasteland their Wasteland. In response, they Wasteland one of my lands, and then I activate in response after that. Although it matters a lot less if I have Vampire Hexmage in play as an additional layer of support beyond that. Yeah, I can just chill. There is Brazen Borrower, which can be a chump blocker for Marit Lage for a turn. So no attacks. At end step, we'll do the thing. So, Wasteland, target your Wasteland. Wasteland, target Dark Depths. Bam. Bam. Thespian stage. Target Dark Depths. Keep the one with no ice counters. And now we probably kill Brazen Borrower while putting our opponent to 7, and my opponent will have another chance to draw some relevant interaction. Goodbye. And we just kind of need our opponent to brick on literally one draw. We've won. We've won. We've beat Reanimator. We only required them to brick off substantially. Alright. There's a Yorion Companion revealed. This is D&D. I am unhappy. And we are in bad shape. If this is a blue deck, we're in for a slog. I don't think my opening hand is particularly strong here. I have interaction, but it's hard for me to use this Sylvan Scrying. It costs me the Lotus Petal, and then I might not even be able to actually truly assemble my combo. So the 6-card hand is this. It is 1 piece of interaction and 1 look at a combo piece. It can go fast. I think after mulliganing once, I'm going to keep this and hope to high roll. I need to cast this one immediately because I do want to Inquisition of Kozilek, and we're looking for one of Vampire Hexmage or Dark Depths, preferably. Didn't happen. I will take a Thespian stage, though. That is an okay consolation prize. Please, not D&T. Okay, not D&T. Oh, it's something wild. I have to reread this card. Draw a card for each creature you control with toughness greater than its power. Target creature you control signs combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power this turn. What are we doing? Why? Why are we phantasmal imaging? I can't get rid of the blue counter spells. I think I am getting make my own 2020. Jump block my 2020. I think I am stopping make my 2020. This is also just an alternative Baleful Strix that just looks a little different. And there's also something that I often say in videos, and that's when you don't understand why your opponent is taking a card, or sorry, playing a card, just take that card with your discard. It's possible there is some combo here that I am not aware of. Don't think I need to just play out a Naked Spirit Guide here or anything. We're chilling. That's black mana off Urborg to just Lorien Revealed cycle for a land. Basic island. And the Strix. Yeah. Mountain. That's unexpected. Verdant Catacombs as a fetch too. So we know this is at least Grixis. This is just dirtily Yorion Grixis control. It's fine if yes. I have two counterspells over there. There's Force of Will and Force of Negation over there. I can't successfully really make a land drop this turn. I don't think I win by playing this out. Life's bad. So what's my path forward? Just luck into drawing Dark Depths? Oh, sure. So there is green. Is this just Yorion pile of Goyfs? Yorion Blink Goyfs? I think I messed up. I think on my opponent's turn I should have copied Bayou. Then I don't have to use temporary mana to cast Once Upon a Time. Oh well. No way my opponent lets Once Upon a Time resolve there. No way. If I get Dark Depths, that is just a 20/20 that my opponent can't stop via the counterspells in their hand. I am so sad that I don't get to punish that. And I just get a fucking Spirit Guide back. There's Misty. So my opponent now does this. So they get to draw 2 cards. Yorion blinking this bullshit is just going to bury me. That's a draw 2, draw 3, plus a Pyroglyph trigger. And my draws aren't great. I think I have seen enough. I don't have Veil of Summer, which is something that I might like against a deck that looks like this one. I'm going to assume that I don't need Pithing Needles against my opponent's mana base. Like, I don't think you get to safely squeeze Wasteland into that. Let's take Legolas's Quick Reflexes to protect. Let's take Duress to protect. Despite the fact that I have some Goyfs, I probably don't need Bojuka Bog. I can just probably turn that into a colored source. Go away, Boseiju. Alright, I can play 1 Not of This World. And I think I just ignore my opponent's creatures. Like, I could play Abrupt Decays and Dismembers and stuff like that. But I think I am trying to stay in a full-on combo role and not combo control. My opponent is so clearly the control deck here. I have a Dark Depths and 2 pieces of protection. I don't have the other piece of the combo. I don't have any way to look for it. I don't like that. Crop rotation, get Dark Depths. This is so unstable. This is so bad versus counterspells. And I'm also just not very good at using the tools here. Do I have to just send this one? So, play Sajiri. Elvish Spirit Guide, crop rotation it. This is Dark Depths. Turn 2, play stage, bam bam. I'm in. I don't like that I'm in, but I'm in. Bam. Bam. And I think I'm going to do this in my opponent's upkeep before they get any more draws. Crop rotation. They had Force of Will and Force of Negation. Drunk. This is a disaster. There's not too much that I can do here other than be lucky. So that is fully going to become the plan. That is a chump blocker. That is probably not... Maybe it's worth 2 of my cards. It's weird because some of the stuff that I care about is not going to be hit by this. Yeah, that's the sort of stuff that I was talking about. So my opponent has 2 mana, so Strix is the only thing that's castable. I guess I will take the thing that's castable. But I'm going to lose to my opponent hitting land drops. The lifelink on this one sucks. Flying on this one sucks. I think I need to draw Dark Depths next turn, or I am effectively dead, even if I am not literally dead. All right, Hierarch was the draw for the turn. My opponent can attack me for 1, and that's safe to do. Dark Depths. Fuck. So now my opponent can start playing these more powerful effects. They have their 3 mana now. My opponent going over 20 life is a really big deal. Opponent's just going to draw a couple of cards off Mana Dorks here. That's very powerful. I think, just going to pass the turn. I will Thoughtseize immediately before I do something cool. I respect the levels of dirtle that my opponent is going to here. Like, we're in an Oops All Spells metagame. I think my opponent missed damage off of Exalted there. I think we're in a metagame that is too fast for this sort of stuff, but this is a cool engine they've got going there. So I know that my opponent has Force of Will. We are going to Lotus Petal, Thoughtseize, take the Force of Will that we know about. All right, I'm out. GG's. And we'll put 2 wins on the board while playing this one. Alrighty. Overall thoughts on the deck list. It felt like I was working very hard. Despite the fact that this is a turbo deck list, and that I can produce a 2020 relatively consistently, it felt like too many of my opponents just incidentally had things that messed with me. The One Ring is a really big deal, Brazen Borrower is a really big deal, Kozilek's Command, Disruptor, Flute. I think Sowing Mycospawn existing, meaning Wasteland stuff, is so prevalent, means that trying to mess around with stuff that looks like this is just a dangerous prospect. And the decks that aren't using Sowing Mycospawn themselves are perhaps ready to fight against the Sowing Mycospawn decks by having things like Wasteland. Generally speaking, I don't think I recommend playing Dark Depths-based strategies, or if you do, you should be playing something slower and more mid-rangey rather than this. I did a little research before I started recording this video, and I found one Turbo Depths list that had placed in about the last 2 months, and about 3 or 4 other slower Depths lists that were in the green-white core with things like Knight of the Reliquary and Elvish Reclaimer. Generally speaking, Depths is a tiny portion of the metagame right now. Again, in a Sowing Mycospawn world, I don't want to be playing the I need multiple lands to do my thing game plan. And my protection was not enough this league. The Not of This Worlds, the crop rotations, the discard spells, they were not successfully punching my stuff through. And I think when Blue-Black Reanimator is also a top deck, and at any point they can just tutor for Archon of Cruelty and eat your Marit Lage if you play it out preemptively to play around the wastelands that they also potentially have. That just feels like a nightmare in terms of picking your battles. There's also a decent amount of Magus of the Moon and Harbinger of the Seas. The only Harbinger of the Seas that we saw was pitched to Force of Will, but that is also a card that is highly problematic for this deck. We have a basic of each color, but we don't have things like Mox Diamond to help out with color fixing. So I think I'm going to give this one a thumbs down. I don't think it is the time for Depths, but perhaps it'll be better in a post-ban world. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you need some cards, you know where to go. See ya!